a podcast about all things health and well-being with me, Ask Elizabeth, counsellor, health advocate and blogger. Join me as we get to know these guests and learn about how they implement health, well-being and self-care practices into their lives. Welcome to Unearthing Wellbeing with Ask Elizabeth, where our greatest wealth is health.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Unearthing Wellbeing, and thank you for coming on the journey with me. This next guest is responsible for bringing Matcha to the mainstream markets of Australia, known for going from lawyer to funtreprenuer, and is seizing her yay in each and every facet of her life. That's right, it's Spoonful of Sarah, otherwise known as Sarah Davidson. Yes, I can't believe my luck again. Sarah is eloquent and intelligent in all regards, from discussing where the idea of matcha came about to her journey of building her brand Spoonful of Sarah and CZA. It was such an amazing learning experience, and I hope you enjoy the latest episode.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so sorry. I had to restart my computer. It opened Zoom and then just pooed its pants.
No, that's okay. That's the joys of technology for you.
I know. Paul didn't want to leave.
Oh, that's okay. He's so cute.
If he barks halfway through, I'm really sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to say I've got tradies in the back. So if they start singing or like machinery goes off, you know why.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm really bad at short answers, so please do cut me off at any time.
Not at all.
I am what I call a lawyer turned funtreprenuer because it's impossible to. I don't actually have a proper title. Started out as a corporate mergers and acquisitions lawyer on a very different, conventional, traditional certainty-based pathway to the one I ended up on, and by virtue of a very happy accident, ended up moving into business with a little side hustle that I didn't expect to go anywhere called Matcha that unexpectedly took off, blew up about 5 years ago now, and engineered the shift from one life to a completely new life. And I call that the second of two very big, significant sliding doors moments in my life. The first was that I was actually born in an orphanage in South Korea and was adopted when I was 6 months old. So I've been so lucky to grow up in this incredible country with a beautiful Caucasian country bumpkin Australian family, and had a very interesting identity of being a fully blown Asian, but also a bogan Australian who spent a lot of time on dairy farms and being a bit of a country gal. And that's always made me very, very grateful and appreciative of the fact that, but for small things in life, things could be completely different to how they are. So appreciate everything you have, because you never know when the next sliding doors moment is around the corner. And then I think that gratitude and appreciation for opportunity and making the most of life kind of is what led me to the path that I took, trying to do really well at school, do every hobby, kind of try every possible sport and extracurricular activity, but also keep up my academics. And I've always had that really adventurous vein of being quite academic on one side, but wanting to try everything as well: sport, ballet, music, everything. And I ended up in law more because I couldn't figure out of all those interests what I actually wanted to do, and that seemed like a very flexible career path that would open more doors than close them. But always staying open-minded to whatever came next. And then the next big sliding doors moment was actually adrenal fatigue. I burnt out after a trip that we were incredibly lucky to go on. My now husband, has a creative agency that had worked on a campaign that funded a school in rural Rwanda. So we had the chance to spend a month in a school in country Rwanda, which I think was the second big pivotal transformative moment. And the first reason was because I think I started to separate success from happiness there for the first time. I thought they were the same. I thought if you were successful, you were automatically happy, which of course now sounds a bit silly. But back then I was on a pathway where everyone did equate them with each other. We were all climbing corporate ladders. Stuff and promotions and numbers and metrics were the way we measured our lives. But I saw over there, I thought I would see poverty and adversity, and I saw much more relaxed happiness with very little than I had seen back here. So that was the first thing. The second thing was I burnt out into adrenal fatigue as soon as I got home, because I took home a gut parasite from just without running water for 4 weeks, and just the interesting challenge to the immune system that traveling to far and wide places can pose to your body. But I ignored all the signs, had no idea about wellness, burnt out completely, was banned from coffee, and discovered matcha powder, which is how the business
Yay!
started.
As I drink my matcha right now.
No way!
Love it.
Amazing. Yeah, so very, very happy accident.
That's amazing. And the fact is, like, you, in such a short space of time, you've been through such like transformative experiences, and they've like led you to where you are now, which is, I guess, you're both business but health related, like, type of working space. And like that, you're, I think from the whole experience, I don't, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can dabble in multiple areas and do it successfully.
Absolutely. I think one of my biggest learnings from the whole past 5 or 6 years has been that I did grow up thinking, like many of us, that there are very delineated career paths, and you choose one and you choose it forever, and everything in your life gets consumed by that thing, which for some people is still the case, and that's still the life structure that suits them, which is absolutely amazing and allows a lot of people to focus very clearly on their skill and not be distracted by what can be quite distracting when you have lots of different balls in the air. And I think I've learned not to create my life around what I'm told is a good life or what other people find is a good life, but to just listen very carefully to how you respond to things. Our body's very smart. It will tell you if you're overloaded. Your brain just starts to kind of get fuzzy when you're doing too much, or you'll get bored. Your body and your mind are very, very tuned in. It's just we don't listen to them, but they know everything. They're very, very clever. And I've started to pay more attention to how I feel in certain experiences and use my own anecdotal evidence as, like, I kind of see myself as a research project. Like, we're just, we look outward to do our research, but really we should be looking outward for inspiration and ideas and education, but inwards for the actual like decision-making information. And for me, I've learned that I don't do very well when I only have one role. I like to have lots of different projects that fulfill different parts of me. There aren't many things that could fulfill all those parts in one job, and if there was, it would be chaos. So I operate much better when I have lots of different things going on. And I have friends who are the complete opposite, and it's all about just giving yourself permission to be different and experiment with different day structures, week structures, life structures. It's again, it's just putting the jigsaw puzzle pieces together one by one as well. You don't have to sort of figure it all out at once. It's just like each experience teaches you something, and you're constantly refining, not just waking up one day and having it all made.
And I love how you said that, like, you're able to juggle so many things up in the air because that's how you like work. Whereas you realize that from your own experiences, like obviously doing law, and that just didn't like do it for you completely. So you went down the path of just following your heart, doing multiple things, dipping your toe in, and being able to successfully juggle all those things in the air, whereas some other people aren't able to do that. And I guess my question to you is, how do you manage that and your health so you're not going down that path of adrenal fatigue again?
Great question, and probably not qualified to answer yet because I haven't figured that out.
I love that.
I think coming back to that idea of tweaking your life constantly, when I first made the big change from corporate to business, I thought that was the answer. I thought I went from a corporate context where I was encouraged to eat at my desk and work long hours and sacrifice weekends, and moving into wellness, especially a wellness product that's literally focused on health and vitality and energy. I was like, oh, I've got it made. I'm going to be at yoga every day. I'm going to be the picture of health. But I actually found it harder to manage myself outside of, with all the flexibility, because in the law firm, I had clear boundaries. I had very clear reasons why I wanted to finish work. Like I liked my work. I really enjoyed it, but there was an incentive to clock off at the end of the day or to finish quickly on the weekend if I did have to work on a weekend. As soon as I moved into something that I loved, but that also didn't feel like work, why would I have a boundary? I just worked the whole entire time. Everything also suddenly turned into work. So going to yoga, I would be suddenly thinking about, could this studio stock Matcha? Like, could we have a business partnership? Nothing was immune from me trying to turn it into part of our business and lifestyle. So, I think the irony of a lot of wellness and health orientated businesses is that the founder or owner's own health and wellness becomes the last priority because the business sucks up everything from you, and you're compromising your values. You're helping other people with their values of health and wellness, but your own get kind of sacrificed. So I actually had adrenal fatigue again, which is the most embarrassing thing, a year into the business, because I'd spent all this time learning my strategies in structure, like law structure. Then I didn't tweak it when I changed my life completely. I didn't put in new boundaries. I didn't add activities that, this whole concept now that I talk about of seize the A, why I have play TA and the idea that we all need hobbies and activities that don't relate to our job in any way, even if we don't think we need them, is because Matcha Maiden was my hobby when I was at the law firm. So it was an outlet. Once I made it my job, I had no outlet and I didn't replace it with anything. So for a year, I had no weekends. I had no idea what day it was. There was no time that wasn't work time. I went into business with my partner. We lived together. It was just all a blur of work. And again, I wasn't listening to my body, which was telling me, you love this, but it still consumes energy and it's still pushing your boundaries way too far. And I genuinely believe that life will teach you a lesson over and over until you learn what you're meant to. And I clearly hadn't learned that we have limits, even when we love what we're doing. Law taught me that you can have too much of something that is like a negative, like not a negative, but a drain on your energy. My business was like filled the cup. I thought, I was like, it's filling me up. It's a positive, but you can also have too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
So I think my advice to anyone is that no matter what you're doing, no matter how much you like or don't like it, there always needs to be downtime. Down as in totally separate from what your brain does most of the time. Not just for creativity, your best ideas come after a break, but for vitality. You're not meant to just work to sleep to work. Like that's just not what life is about. Otherwise there wouldn't be things for leisure or pleasure. Like we're meant to go off and enjoy art or be outside and spend time with loved ones. And nobody ever lived a fulfilling life if they just worked the whole entire time, even if they loved their job. So I think balance, whatever that looks like for you, spend time experimenting. I thought that one day of a weekend was enough. I actually need 2. My 5 days of the week are so much better if I take 2 full days off. I work a little bit, but I spent the next couple of years just tweaking my sleep hours, my diet, how much I exercise, how much I spend outside. Like everything became, nothing is a given anymore. Everything was suddenly like, what is going to work? What isn't? Put things in that make you feel good, take things out that don't.
It's a little bit of like testing the waters, seeing how you go. And I guess from my experience, you learn more from your mistakes and from things that happen in your life. Yeah, so you learn more from those moments in time rather than those points where you're, I suppose, like riding the waves and you're enjoying everything, but you're not actually like learning
Growing.
from them. Yeah, you're not growing. So from those experiences, you're actually doing something better, I guess. Yeah, so you did touch on it before, but like, for instance, what's your specific like self-care routines and so forth?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's been a little bit different this year in Victoria. We've been in lockdown for most of the year, which has actually been another big change in the circumstances to mean that I've needed to retweak everything. Normally, the most important thing for me every week is that Sunday of all of the week. Sunday is it's a weekend everywhere in the world. So that's the day where I fully give myself permission. I call it Sloth Sunday because I need to like trigger my brain that you're meant to be as much like a sloth as you can. You're meant to move as little as possible. I try not to exercise even on a Sunday. I try not to be on my devices. That my main self-care day of the week is Sunday. That's where I'll read a crime book in one go, or I'll have a bath in the middle of the day, or I'll take the dog to the beach and just forget what the time is. It's when I indulge in hobbies and puzzles, and I'll do like, this is so nerdy, but I love Sudoku. I'll do Sudoku for like 4 hours
Oh my
and
God.
not worry that it's a waste of time. That's the day I give myself where productivity is not a goal. I try and let go of every other way that I measure normal days of the week. That's been, I never really had that. I would sort of take weekends, but then I'd spend half the day doing something, or I'd try and tick off errands. Like I'd try and go to a class and then do this and then have brunch with a friend, and it was still on.
Yeah.
So the biggest game changer for me has been one day a week where there are no expectations from myself on myself. Nick and I just spend a lot of time pottering around the house. The whole day will pass and we're like, we didn't achieve anything, but we watched 2 seasons of something that didn't teach us anything about anything, but it was amazing.
I love that. And you actually need that, like, I think with WOG mentality, like my parents are just like, you can't just sit there and do nothing. Come on, you've got a Sunday, just clean up. And I'm like, no, I actually need that mental break. Like, so I either stay in bed for a little bit longer and close the door and shut off, or go for that walk and listen to music. So you're actually just being in the moment and you're being productive, but you're also doing nothing at all at the same time, which is weird to like say, but I think you just have to see what works well for you. And I think it looks different for everyone. So for you guys, like Sloth Sundays, and I love that like expression and just describing it how it is. Like sometimes you just need to relax and do nothing at all, and that is how you refuel for the next day. And I think if you're not doing that, you're not able to go about your like the following week with so much energy and just vitality and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I found working backwards, if I have that day, I can be a lot more flexible around the rest of the week. If I can't fit in a lot of self-care every single day, I can catch up on a Sunday, and that has allowed me to kind of buffer out the fact that our weeks don't look the same. It's very hard to structure the weekdays because of the nature of our work. So if I can have like one full day that's really consistent, there's a lot of, we all have life admin and we all have like active resting where you're doing housework or just like decluttering or organizing stuff. I try and do that on a Saturday so that I know by Sunday I really don't have a to-do list. And that's the most liberating thing because the whole week is just to-do lists. But then I also think I don't want to get to Sunday and then be totally spent so I can't enjoy anything. So I also try and do a few small things consistently during the week, even small things like I'll meditate in the morning and in the afternoon, and that really helps me counteract how intensely we spend the rest of the day. It just kind of over time, it doing it now every day for many years, it helps keep my anxiety at bay. regular exercise is also something that is an hour or so that you spend away from your work and productivity, but that is to look after yourself and makes you so much more active and engaged and feel good in between. And the other thing is, we have created our life and our business in a way that does allow some flexibility. In some ways, it allows much less flexibility because you don't have the security of a wage. So you have to bring in your own livelihood all the time. So that does mean sometimes we work many more hours than we would have otherwise. But on other days, it's also like, well, if you don't get sick days. So if you don't take them yourself, you're never going to actually, get better from something. So I've also, the biggest thing this year that I've learned to do for self-care is, if I do have I have quite severe anxiety a couple of times a year, maybe even a bit more this year. When I have those days, I used to just push through and say, it's a Tuesday. This is a working day. Like, I need to keep going, even if I get nothing done. And I was like, I don't work in an office anymore. I don't need to spend another 5 hours sitting here if I'm not doing anything because I just feel so crap.
Yeah.
So I've been learning to sort of do a gentler day here and there if I need to, and then ramp it up the next day and work longer hours when, go with your energy as much as you can, because we do have that flexibility and it's silly not to use it when you do feel not yourself. That's been a really big thing. And also baths. I love baths.
Yes. Oh my God. I don't know if you know Kissed Earth, but I've been using their soak, and it's got like magnesium collagen in it as well. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm getting it soaked up into my body. So with
I know Nick always is like, oh, you're just stewing in your own filth. I'm like, and bath salts. Thank you. It is amazing. They're just so good. It's just like a hug. I love them. I'll have a bath almost like when it was cold in winter, I had one every day. Like, they're my favorite.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So and I'll read like a crime book. I love crime books. I'll just read something that's totally unrelated to my job for like an hour, and that like takes my brain out of the day.
It's funny you say that, because 2 days ago, although the water pressure wasn't great, I was in the bath reading your book. I was like, I need to, like, as soon as I bought it, I was reading every single day, like for hours at a time. And then I guess life gets you and COVID restrictions have eased. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing what I love to do. So I'm like, I'm going to catch up on this, considering I'm seeing Sarah on Wednesday.
Thank you so much. Your support has been amazing.
No, I love it. And you're just so intelligent, and just your wealth of knowledge in this book. I'm like, oh my God, yes. Love it so much. I guess from that, like, you've said a lot in just such a short amount of time. And my question to you is, what was your favorite chapter or your favorite quote from the book?
That's a great question. I think the first two, so the first one is the story. The first two actual content chapters are probably the ones I found the process of writing to be the most transformative for, because the first one is the self-sabotage of self-doubt. The next one, comparison, is the thief of joy. And while I was writing both of those, I was experiencing those things so heavily about the book. So I think they stand out to me because as I was writing the self-doubt chapter, which is something I thought I had mastered pretty well, I thought I'd had a lot of years of building strategies towards how to overcome just that natural reflex of thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? Imposter syndrome, I shouldn't be here. Like, it's such a natural reflex when you do anything new. And I was surprised that even with all the self-work and even with so much knowledge of how my body does react to new, unfamiliar, scary things, that as I was writing, don't listen to your self-doubts. They're just your inner critic. It's just a reflex. I was thinking, I'm so crap. Who's going to read this? And why am I worthy? Why should I have a book? And then as we got to comparison, the same thing. I was like, look at all the other authors. Oh my God, their sales are going to be much bigger. I'm not anyone, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was going through those things as I was writing them. So I feel like when I read them, I also remember that I was feeling those things as I was writing them, rather than writing about a past feeling and something I had experienced. It had come back as I was writing. And I think that made the insight deeper because I'd forgotten maybe what they had felt like because I hadn't done anything brand new in a while.
Yeah.
So I loved writing those because they helped me through that process as well. And I feel like we all have a lot of knowledge in our head, but there are certain things you can never hear too many times. And I think as women, particularly, you can never hear too many times that comparison is futile because we're of course we're going to compare ourselves all the time. That's part of being us. That's part of living in a digital world where social media is rife, I needed all those reminders myself. And I thought, well, if I need them, there's at least going to be one or two other people who are still going through this themselves in something.
Yeah.
So they were probably my favorites to write. In terms of the topics I love talking about the most, I think I really liked the opportunity to, it's gone from being on social media to 1 hour long podcast chats to now a full book. And each time as the people's attention span gets a little bit longer of how much their content they're going to receive from you, you get to share a bit more.
Yes.
And I didn't think there was much left that I hadn't shared with the world because I'm a bit of an oversharer. But I liked the opportunity to share the way my brain thinks about certain things and share some vulnerabilities maybe or parts of the story or fill some gaps that I just don't come up in any other context because you're not telling a whole book worth of information. I liked that because that also for me was something new to share moments of vulnerability I'd maybe never shared before or hadn't thought about before. And I kind of felt by the time I finished the book that even if no one read it, I had gotten so much personally from the process of, in much the same way as a journal. If you sat down and wrote every single thing in your brain for the last 30 years of your life, so much would come out and it'd be so cathartic. So that's what it was for me. It was like, oh my gosh, every chapter has something I didn't know I knew, or I didn't remember that I'd thought, or that I have never shared before. There was something along every part that I was like, that's new. We never get that deep because I always just say my favorite quote on a topic. We have like 10 minutes chat and then it's done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. And it's actually funny you say that because in the first 2 chapters, if you can see this, I have got, where is it? I've got so many highlights like in those
that makes
2
me
chapters.
so happy.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this resonates with me so much because I'm going through the same process as like in life as well. And you can learn so much from people when they're actually, I guess, going through the same things as you, but it's like an outsider like saying them. And whereas if you're saying it to yourself, like you're not going to take it on as seriously. And I find that the same with, because I'm a counselor as I've graduated as a counselor, and I find that it's easier to give out advice rather than take it on yourself. And a lot of people say to me, gee, you're good at giving advice, but not taking it on, because I guess we're our own self-critic and we always criticize ourselves the most. So
absolutely,
from reading this, like I've tried to become more kinder to myself and understand that we all go through that process of life and just the roller coaster, which is life. So it's so beautiful. And if whoever hasn't read it yet, like I always suggest to people because it's just amazing.
You. That's so kind. Thank you so much. That means a lot. It really does. I think the publisher originally wanted it to be very practical and brand building and how we built the business. And I sort of was a bit more like, I actually want to talk more about the bits that didn't work. Like
be honest.
Well, also I think there's, you've got to find your place in the market. There are a lot of books about building businesses. There are a lot of books that are about building lifestyle and about growing an idea or making a change. But where I find I get the most when I'm having a vulnerable moment is from other people's vulnerabilities, not from their strengths, or not from the things that have gone really smoothly, but from hearing actually she had a breakdown as well. So we're all fine. Yeah. We're all crazy, but it's fine. Like they're the bits that helped me anyway. So I thought if I could, continue that in a book form, that, maybe that would resonate with a few people out there.
Definitely has. So you should be really proud of yourself. And I hope there's another book to come. No pressure.
I feel like it's like childbirth. I feel like you sort of got to get over the trauma of like how hard it was the first time. And then in a couple of years, I'll be like ready again because I will have forgotten how hard it was.
Yeah, I love that. I guess and you talk about like your podcast and stuff like that. So I'm like reading those chapters and I'm like, yep, I need to take note of every single part because like this is so new for me. Like there was one person who I was going to interview in a few weeks' time, but they had to cancel due to other commitments, which was totally fine. And they were like, when we do recommit to this, would you prefer to do it face to face? And I'm like, well, I don't really have the technology for that at the moment, but sure.
That's amazing.
Oh my God. And I'm like, I need to look into what equipment I need to buy because currently I'm using just my Mac, a makeup light, and my headphones, and Bob's your uncle.
But that's all you need. I mean, this is why I get so excited about people at the very beginning, and then so much of the book is about done is better than perfect, is because like almost everything we have done since leaving a job where everything was the opposite, everything needed to be absolutely perfect. My job was to identify risk and avoid the risk at all costs. Since moving and unlearning all of that, I've embraced the total opposite idea, which is that all you actually need is to sell or to create or to make one thing. If you can make one podcast, you just need to be able to make one episode. You already have everything that you need to make one episode. You'll grow into buying the microphones. You'll grow into all that stuff. Same with Matcha. The original idea was sell one bag because we didn't think it was going to be a business. And I almost think, I mean, you'll know, you will have read that chapter about dream big but plan small. You want to dream big, but when you do dream big, you get really overwhelmed and scared and then you don't start. So dream big, but think about only in planning, only the very, very next step you need to make one thing work.
Yeah.
Because if you have one, you can now record 100. You know, they might not be with a real, like a proper microphone, but you can record 100 like this. So why do you need to think about 10 steps ahead of yourself if all you actually need is the first one?
I know. And like I'm learning to do that, but because I'm quite the organized, look down a year in time and say, yep, I've got to do this to tick those boxes. But like for this experience, and I think COVID has taught me that too, you need to just take it day by day. Because if you don't, you're just going to become more anxious. And like yourself, I'm also quite an anxious person. Haven't been diagnosed with it, but for sure I've got it. And and I need to make sure I'm not overloading myself because otherwise I'm just going to end up burnt out or really anxious. And that'll take longer for me to overcome than just taking it as it comes. So like carpe diem and all that. So yeah, absolutely. I definitely understand how you're like what you're saying and stuff like that. And I think as you've had so many podcasts and so forth, who has been your most inspirational guest over that course?
I get this question a lot, and I actually think the biggest things that have inspired me or that have helped tweak something in my mind have actually been not so much a particular guest. It's probably been every guest in a small way. So like my favorite part of the whole podcast is how different everyone is. My biggest takeaway has been truly the people who are the happiest and the most fulfilled are the ones who accept that their likes and needs are different to everyone else's, and they just roll with it, and they stop, like they shed that skin of being someone who molds to everyone else's stuff, and they just own what they love and they roll with that. And that's only come from hearing so many people have completely opposite lifestyles and structures and industries and everything from each other. Like it's the breadth of guests and the way they all find the same level of happiness but from such different stuff. That's been what I take away the most from all the conversations. And yeah, I think it's sort of more the combination of all of them rather than just one.
Yeah.
Obviously, there have been some that have made me laugh more, or some that have changed the way that I see the world more, like the philanthropic social entrepreneurs like blow my mind. But everyone is impressive in their own way. You know, I always say, everyone knows something you don't. Everyone you meet knows something you don't, and it's up to you to find out what that is. So I think some of them, the ones that have expanded my mind or that I've found the most captivating, are usually ones that are so different from my own experience that I can't imagine what their life is like. And so to just nitpick and be like, what do you do every day and what does that involve? Like, I loved the episode with the Thai cave diver who rescued all the boys from the cave, who's also an anaesthetist, but also a technical cave diver, and didn't do it as a job. It was his hobby on the side of anaesthetist work.
Yeah.
And he was like the only person in the world who had both skills, who could dive into the cave and sedate the boys and dive them out. Like, that is so far beyond my experience of life that I just wanted to know everything. I found that just stretched my brain. Like, I could feel that it was expanding my horizons about what life can involve. We had an SAS commander who, again, like, he's done 12 tours in Afghanistan and is also, you know, an Aussie guy with a kid who now lives with his young boy. Like, you know, I love hearing about life experiences that just are so different to my own.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed them all. I really have enjoyed them all, for so many different reasons. And also, I think because you do a lot of them, you hear the person's name a lot and you don't know what to expect. And it's so nice to humanize a story and to hear people laugh, to hear people tell them something stupid about themselves or what makes them giggle, and then to hear them giggle. Like, nothing humanizes a person more than hearing their laugh, particularly if they snort. It's the best. Or there are people who you haven't heard of before, but who are doing stuff that changes the world around you. And you're like, I wish I knew which people were responsible for this stuff. I enjoy them all for such different reasons. But yeah, I think I really, really enjoyed the Thai cave diver one recently. That was one this year.
Yeah.
I loved Mark Manson because I love his books. And we're so different. Like, we're so the same in so much of our philosophy about life, but his is a very aggressive, like, subtle art of not giving a fuck. Whereas mine's like, yay, but it was nice to unite those two worldviews in one chat, and we just laughed the entire time, like, about his gas and, like, you know, how gassy he is. Like, I was like, how are we talking about your bowel movements? You know, conversations just go in all different directions. And
oh, that's the best.
it was so much fun. So, like, yeah, I think there's some really big names of people who I've admired since well before I had a podcast that blow my mind, because I'm like, you're just a normal human, we're having a chat. Then there are people who I've never heard of before who I'm like, you are amazing, this is so cool. Yeah, bit of everything. Again, told you I can't do a short answer.
No, that's actually amazing. And the fact that you've been so lucky in respects to having all those people on, and you're learning from each like person, because no individual is the same. And I think that's so important to understand. So like, my podcast is called Unearthing Wellbeing, and people are like that I've approached to come on ask, oh, so will this work for you because you're from the wellbeing holistic health area? I'm like, of course, like, we can all learn off each other, and like, no individual is the same. So like, why not ask those questions about how you roll with life and what you do to fill your cup and so forth. So yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I'm just like, just reeling back about what you've said. I'm like, oh my God, I need to listen to those episodes again.
Yeah, they're just fun. I just have a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's amazing. I guess like, you have so many hats that you like wear, and you've touched on like your book, so being an author, you're a podcaster, you have got the Matcha Maiden like business as well. For the people who haven't tried it, themselves, which like everyone should try at least once, and don't knock it because it's green. Um, tell us the health benefits and I guess the ways that you can put it into recipes as well.
Yeah, so I discovered it, as I mentioned, because when I had adrenal fatigue, coffee was just too intense for my body. So I was looking for something that had caffeine, but it was a healthier alternative because I still, was working long hours and wanted some kind of a buzz of energy, but I couldn't tolerate the high amount in coffee. So I got sent to the firm's headquarters in Hong Kong, and in Asia, matcha is everywhere. It's pretty much everywhere that you can find coffee. So I very quickly caught on to the fact that the main use of it is as a hot beverage. You can have it as a tea or in a latte, and it sounds like a bit of a buzzword, but it's actually just green tea leaves. So instead of a tea bag where you throw out the leaves and you drink the brewed water, which is weird because we try and eat our leafy greens, matcha is the leaf dried out and ground into a powder. So you dissolve the leaf and you swallow the whole thing in the powder, and it tastes almost the same as normal green tea, maybe a little bit stronger, but it has up to 137 times the antioxidants and 10 times the nutritional content because it's so much more dense. But it also has about half the amount of caffeine as coffee, but because it has an amino acid in it that's unique to green tea and to tea leaves, it releases into your bloodstream over 3 to 4 hours. So instead of coffee where you get like a spike of energy but then often a crash afterwards, it just is like a sustained level of, it's like called calm energy. So the alpha waves of your brain kind of activate for a longer period of time, which is why it actually originated among monks, Zen Buddhist monks who were doing meditations for many hours and needed energy without a crash. And now it's sort of started when we first started looking for a good coffee alternative, it had started to become more mainstream, but we're still really seen as like an ancient old school not a superfood powder that you would use every day. It was like a tea ceremony, sit down, have a whisk and like do the whole thing. But cafes were getting onto it. By the time we got back to Australia, you mentioned before, like there are a lot of green powders. Spirulina tastes like foot, like they're not very nice. They're really healthy, but they're not amazing. Green tea tastes like green tea. If you love green tea, it tastes the same. It's amazing. If you don't, you just chuck it in a smoothie. There are so many different ways that you can have it in your, add it into your daily life. You can bake with it. You can use it as a seasoning. We put it into like balsamic vinegar and then put it in salad dressings. You can put it in a face mask. Like there's ways you can sneak it into your diet if you don't really like the taste. If you do and you love green tea, amazing. Just drink it as a green tea and you're getting such a good boost of energy, but also antioxidants. And the many benefits of green tea have been hailed for centuries, so it's not a new concept either. It's just that people often haven't heard of the format of it being the leaves. We got obsessed with it and haven't really looked back.
Best discovery for sure, especially because like it's so diverse and you can mask the taste if you don't like it. But like for me, I have never been able to tolerate coffee, and I learned that at my early stages of part-time work, where I'd have one latte in the morning and my heart would race so much that I would get more anxious because of that heartbeat. And then I was like, you know what, it's not worth it, turf it. And I started with hot chocolates, but even then, because of the sugar content in that, I'm just like, look, I'm trying to be healthier. I need to cut out all the refined sugars. And I wanted something to have that was hot in the cold weather. So when I found this, I was like, where have you been all my life?
So was I. I was like, it's literally been around for centuries. Like, why are we so slow on the uptake?
Yeah. And like, I think people get very weird about like what it looks like, but who cares if it doesn't look like milk? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's green, but the taste is actually good. It doesn't taste like swamp and feet like you said with spirulina. So like, may as well take the leap, which is
totally. Otherwise, just mask it with some fruit. Put it in a smoothie. Like my mum doesn't really like the taste, but she loves what it does to her skin, and so she just puts it in a smoothie, adds some berries, and you can't even taste it.
There you go, guys.
I know, I'm like, Mum, you're such a bad ambassador. How rude.
Love it. For those, like, I guess you name yourself the Funtrepreneur. So for people who, sorry, I just like detoured a little bit, but for people who are wanting to become their own boss or Funtrepreneur per se, what are your 3 tips to, I guess, start and take that leap?
The first tip would be what we talked about before, the idea that not everyone is actually suited to that lifestyle. And I think it's been glorified a lot over the last maybe decade, which is amazing because it is a lot more democratic now. Anyone can have a good business idea, and it's so exciting that there are grants and that there is a lot more support than there once was. But my first piece of advice would be, first, investigate whether or not you want to do that, whether or not you actually want to be your own boss, whether or not you would enjoy being the person that wears every single hat and does the books and does the marketing and does the Instagram and does the everything, like the operations. You really do become quite distracted from the bit that you're hired to do in a job. You have to do all the jobs.
Yeah.
So I think be really, really honest with yourself and explore as much as you can first to see whether or not that would suit you, or whether you would actually find it distracts you from your yay. Talk to people as broadly as you can, in both, like people who have left to start their own business, people who have left their own business to go back to corporate. Like, I think just talk as widely as you can, because not everyone will be suited to it. And you don't want to give up everything that you have just because you think it looks like an amazing life path.
Yeah.
If you have decided that it is something you want to do and you do have a really good idea, then I would say, once you're there and once you do feel like you've done a little bit of research and considered, really given it some thought, like we said before, you're never going to feel ready. Pretty much ever. Like, it's very, very rare that you're going to make a jump into something that you've never done before and you're going to go, yeah, I've got this. I think most of the time you're going to be like, it's a big risk. Can I do it? Is it going to work? Like, there's so much overthinking that you can do and to scare yourself off before you even do it. So I think just start before you're ready. You'll get ready. You'll get ready very quickly. If you actually make the jump, you'll force yourself. You'll force your own hand to learn on the go. And there are now more than enough examples of people who have learnt on the fly without any qualifications and any background in business to prove that you can do it. So start before you're ready and equip yourself with the best tools you can from early on. And then the last one is that quote that I love: you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you ask 5 people who are really risk averse and very certainty focused, who have never run businesses, don't know anyone else who's done it, you're probably going to get a lot of negative feedback on the idea. Because they don't know anything else, because they do want their salary to come in. They do want certainty. They do want structure, and they do love what they're doing. If you want to go into business and take a big leap, you need to talk to people who've done it and believe that you can do it, because they're the ones who are going to be like, in those moments where you're like, shit, this isn't going to work. You need people who are going to go, yes, it is. You'll be fine. Like anything in life, don't ask people who are going to give you an answer you don't want.
Yes.
Surround yourself with people who don't think it's a big deal at all, who are like, dude, just do it. It's fine. We'll be here.
Exactly.
Pick your people.
I love that. And I think that last tip is so important, and I live by it, because even if you've got like a wide range of friends, which ones work for specific things. And if you're wanting to do this, for instance, and take that leap, you need to consult people who are going to be supportive of you and motivate you to do it. So even if you've got nerves and reservations about it, they're supporting you and they've got your back no matter what. Whereas some people are more logical and be like, oh, I don't know about this. Like, maybe have a think about it some more. And then you end up just being like, well, screw it, I'm not going to do it. So you need to have a balance. And I think it's so important that you've touched upon that. So yeah.
Totally. I mean, there's a whole chapter on that, like going to the right person for anything in life, any decision you want to make. You can kind of tell what answer most of your friends are going to give you. So be careful who you ask.
Be wise. I love that. And I'm so grateful, like, for having you on as a guest. Like, you are incredible. And for a second guest, like, wow, I can't be any more fortunate. So thank
Oh,
you very much. And I can't believe
you've been so supportive. Thank you so much.
no, not at all. And I can't believe an hour's gone. Like, I think
Like that.
yeah, literally it went so fast. And I'm like, oh my God, I want the podcast to go for longer, but obviously there's time restraints on everything and that's it. So I think my last question, and more so for the listeners, what is your best advice for those who want to unearth their own well-being and where to start?
I think coming back to that idea of treating yourself as a research project is my biggest tip, because I used to kind of look for it at, like we mentioned, outwardly. Like I'd be like, oh, that person likes doing that thing, or she likes pottery, or she likes that sport. Like I used to look outwards for ideas, and it's kind of not really, it's like the backwards way to figure out what works for you most. So I actually went through a phase at the very start before I had decided that my philosophy was called Seize the A, but when I was in the early beginnings of like getting used to just trying stuff instead of studying for 7 years before I'd made a decision, in the very early days of the business, I just made lists. I had like almost like a study book on myself, and I'd be like, what have I not tried? I haven't tried salsa. I haven't tried, Reiki. I've tried this kind of massage, but not that kind of massage. I've like never been horse riding. I've never, like I just made a list of stuff I'd never done. I crossed off the things that I knew were really not, gonna either work or that weren't sustainable or that just didn't I can't like fly to a freaking island every day. But like activities that I could try just to learn more about myself and figure out what worked and what didn't. And even like I had to learn that I love podcasts, but I can't listen to learning podcasts on a weekend or I get stressed because I start to like write down ideas for business and stuff. So I just kept like a self-care or self-awareness journal, like a notebook, where I'd write down all the activities, I'd tick off after I'd done them, and then I'd make a note like really loved, didn't really love, or felt this way this week, didn't feel this way this week. I've learned more about how the weather impacts how I feel and how I find it much harder to get motivated when it's overcast than when it's sunny. Like small things, but that mean that you don't like have a breakdown when you're like, why aren't I motivated? And you get all hard on yourself and you're like, oh, it's the weather. It's so obvious. Like just know yourself and like take notes, write down all the things that you love. And I only realized how much baths really help me de-stress when I had written it down enough times that I circled it as like the common denominator. I was like, oh, I'm onto something. Like I knew I liked them, but I didn't know it was like a strategy for wellness. I didn't know it was something I could do to break up when I get to 4 p.m. and I'm like, I cannot work anymore, but I've got something due. Sometimes I go for a run, sometimes I have a bath. And I get out and I'm like, oh, it's like a new day. Like I've started again. I've cleaned the slate. And those things you don't know unless you just try them and take notes and write down and just be very attentive about your own reaction to things.
That's the best. No, I think a lot of people will take that, and I'm going to be doing it. I need to do that more often. So yeah, thank you again so much for all the amazing, for that hour. I can't, my God.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And I wish you all of the luck in the world. And I can't wait to hear some more podcasts and maybe in a few years' time, that new baby in a All right. Take care. And thank you again.
Thank you, lovely. Bye.
Sarah was such a sweetheart and I thoroughly enjoyed the chat with her. I hope she gave you the confidence and nudge in the right direction to take the leap and make a career change in the quest to achieve your goals. If you want to learn more of her, take a read of her book and listen to her podcast, Seize the A. Sarah can be found on Instagram at spoonful_of_Sarah. To ensure Ask Elizabeth and Unearthing Wellbeing continues to grow, please subscribe and rate the podcast. Feel free to also share and tag us on your socials. I hope you have a lovely day. Be safe and be kind. Take care.